Hello, Pearson Tutor. My name is Laura Maria Lara Rojas, and this is my interview with an English teacher. So I want to introduce to you Mr. Angel, and
Yes.
thanks for accepting
Thank
my
you.
invitation.
Thanks to you, Lara.
Okay, so we will start with the interview, and I want to ask you some questions about the relation in between language and culture. So my first question is, what do you think about culture?
Well, my particular opinion about what culture is, we could define culture as customs and probably the behavior of a particular, society. So basically, that's what I think about what culture is. Culture is what people do, behavior. It talks about customs. That's my opinion.
Okay. What is the influence of culture in the process of a foreign language learning?
Well, I'm pretty sure that culture has, of course, influence depending on the culture, because if we, as Latins, for example, we are noisy, we are sometimes lazy to work. So if we compare our culture to others, we could define Latin people probably as I said already, noisy and probably lazy people. So of course, culture has obviously influence in the process of learning any other language.
Okay, I know that you are you work as an English teacher for teenagers
Yes.
and adults.
Yes.
So I want to know, how do you involve culture in the strategies you use in your English classes?
Okay. Yes. As I said before, I try to convince people that they do not have to do what they are. It means if they've been in a cultural process of, for example, being lazy with their works or homeworks, or sometimes if they don't ask in a proper manner. For example, if they don't raise their hands, if they don't ask for permission to ask, I try to force them, to involve them with the process, trying to convince them that is a better way to do it. Okay? So that's probably an example I use. So they understand that in class they have to respect others, and that's something we do not do in our cultures. We are not used to respect others in general. So that's basically part of our culture. So that's the way I try to involve culture in a positive way.
Okay, and could you involve culture in different ways, like on, I don't know, music, movies, or no, I don't know, another kind of examples? Could you give it, please?
Yes. Well, culturally, I'm not sure, but of course, there are many ways to improve the English learning process, and of course, you could add to the process listening exercises using, for example, Colombian music. You could translate them. I'm not sure if that's the question you're trying to ask me. I probably couldn't understand what you tried to ask me, but I think there are many different ways we could apply culture and to the English process.
Okay, no, I was asking if you think culture is involved only in behavior, or it could be involved in another ways, like music, movies,
Yes.
Economy.
Everything. Okay, yes, it is related with everything. Culture is not only behavior, customs, but not only that. It talks about, as you said, music, political, economical. So there are many different things that you can consider what culture is.
Yeah, right. Okay, we could talk about globalization. It's
Exactly.
very important. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, what do you consider are the most important elements to success in the second language learning?
Well, the most important elements to success is the desire. Well, probably desire is not an element, but for me, is the most important one. So if you wish, if you really desire, if you have goals, if you have purposes, for sure you will be successful in the learning process. So for me, these are the most important elements, okay? Because probably if you do not focus yourself in what you really want, you want success. I mean, you have to have your purposes and goals clear, and you have to decide what you really want to do, because as you said, learning a different language is a whole process, okay? It's not something that happens suddenly, okay? So these elements for me are the most important in the whole process.
Okay. Do you think it could be possible to teach a second language, in your case English, without taking into account culture?
No, of course you need to take it into account, because you need to recognize, depending on the culture you are, as I said, the customs the people have. You have to be respectful, and in the process of understand the culture, you will have to define what methods or strategies are better to be used. And of course, it is really important to understand culture, not only our culture, but other cultures.
Okay. And finally, my last question is it is a reality that the concept of culture has changed in the last decades.
Okay.
So, do you think this concept of culture could change in the future?
I'm going to use a word you used before, and that word is globalization.
Okay.
So in nowadays, we're living in a global world, which depends or start depending one to another. So every day we're not separate. Every day we're closer to a different cultures, languages, people around the world. So of course, culture, probably the concept will change in the future. In that way, we get closer to others. Okay, because in the past we used to be a close culture, and in the future, I think we're going to be more open. Okay, so that's my opinion, and I think yes, I think probably in the future the concept will change, not in a significant way, but probably in some ways.
Okay, thank you very much, and it was a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks to you.
Okay, bye.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.